Thank you, Luis. I am William Gould, and I am from the USDA Caribbean Climate Hub. I am in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and I am the director of the Climate Hub for the Caribbean. And this center is part of a network that has 10 regional hubs that cover the geography of the United States, and an international climate hub that is directed by our Foreign Agriculture Service. And these centers collaborate with all of the agencies of our Department of Agriculture to improve knowledge of the key messages that come from research, climate research, along our collaborators and employees. The climate hubs share the best practices for adaptation, mitigation, for climate change through seminars and other materials for education. And I am very, very happy to be collaborating with our colleagues from CATIE to be able to offer the series of seminars for cacao growers. And of course, thank you to all, Luis Orozco and the International Climate Hub also. And Barbara Bennett, I don't know if she is with us at the moment, but this center is also sharing information on the series to the international community. And I want to thank Dr. Viviana Medina, our coordinator at our Climate Hub of the Caribbean. She is our contact, our main contact for this series, and she is going to be with us managing the logistics of this seminar. Thank you to all participants, and we are waiting. And thank you so much for your words. Our thanks to Vivian have come to this day today. I would like to include that the themes are right here on the screen. We are going to have the participation of the FIA in Honduras, quality of cacao. We're going to have experts on quality from Raus Cacao, who is a German company, Katia, and Viviana is also going to be part of the panel. For May 31st in June, genetic of cacao from Cadiz. On June 28th, we're going to be talking about cadmium, and that's going to be in charge of a group from Peru. And on the 12th of July, we're going to have the participation of Mica France Foundation, who will be talking about genetic markers. And we're going to close the series with the participation of the university, talking about what we need to do for hydric stress. So we have an enriched menu, and we have a diversity of institutions that will be participating. Today we have Oscar Ramírez-Argueta. He is from Honduras. He has worked since 2015 with FIHA, the Honduran Foundation for Agriculture Research. He studied in the CATIE between 2020, degree in agroforestry and sustainable agriculture. And he is also the director of SEDEC Jazz. They have some 25 years of research, taking up data and generating innovative practices and results in the cacao and wood. Although we They also manage other types of topics. So we are so happy to have the participation of Oscar from Honduras. I believe we should mention that Oscar was part of the students that we have been supporting from Katia. He has been one of the best students we've had, and we are so happy to continue to collaborate with them. So we have a magnificent professional that will give us from his experience and share his knowledge. And why are we starting with Monilia and other diseases? Well, I wanted to show you this graphic that shows the evolution of the production of cacao in Honduras from 1960s to 2016. And if you can notice, in 1997, we started dealing with moniliasis, and you can see the negative effect with the loss of production at a national level. So it is a disease that is present in 15 countries of Latin America, and we need to know the epidemiology, how to handle it, so that we can decrease the negative effects in production. Fortunately, it's not seen in Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic, but it is in Jamaica. So we know that it's a latent threat that through time we will be facing. So we need to know about this topic and prevent the issues related to this disease. I also want to congratulate FIA. This is their 40th anniversary, and Oscar took from his time, an hour and a half, to discuss this important information. And to the right of the screen, if you want to know more about their research with wood and sustainable use, you can download this article that was provided at that time. Now we have 112 people that were registered up to yesterday that come from different countries. It's magnificent to see that we have people from Puerto Rico, Colombia, Costa Rica, and Peru. And if you can see all the way down, I believe we have a very diverse audience that is with us throughout the presentation and with him. Thank you so much and have a great day. Thank you so much, Dr. Orozco, for the introduction. We are going to be sharing our screen. Good morning. I would like to start by saying that this is based on the experience we have as a Honduran Foundation with the management of diseases related to the cacao area. We have 4, which was debuted on 1985. We have an experimental center for this objective, and I am connected from that facility right now. It's called Jesús Alfonso Sánchez, and we are in the North Department, specifically in the municipality of La Masica. This is an experimental farm that has some 80 to 18 feet of above the level of the sea, and we have mid temperatures annually, and we have precipitation of 3,000 millimeters. As you can see in the photograph, you can notice the borders of the related to the kinds of research. Our key point is improvement in the genetic quality. We started doing interclonal research so that we could have better better characteristics in terms of the handling of any diseases that will come from the progeny so that we can clone and validate them and have this behavior research depending on the different lines. We have some 36 species of wood that are related to cacao. For more than 25 years, we have been measuring the growth rates of the different areas of the tree. We know the percentage of light, the canopy size, the interactions with the cacao plants in terms of productivity and disease control, and the phenology. Recently, we have been studying biomass and the capture of carbon, and we are, of course, handling 4 different research projects for the mechanic physical to know about the quality of wood. In the research area, we have been also discussing about quality of the cacao pod and the seeds, everything that has to do with fermentation, of drying, so that we can offer clients whatever they need. And we also have analysis for the clones selected and the analysis of the selected so that we can have the best product for the chocolate making process. In terms of production, we are checking on the resistance to diseases through artificial viticulation. We're also doing sexual compatibility, which is one of the key areas that has to do with the production. We are also dealing with nutrition, chemical, and organic. We have regional tests to validate the clones. We deal with also topics related to cadmium, which is very important, especially in the countries that are consuming a lot of chocolate. And we also handle the integrated management of diseases that we're going to be discussing from now on. And to talk in general about the diseases, this is a distribution of the different diseases throughout the continents. We find here that we have that the main diseases is moniliasis and black pod. Then we have in South America, we also have escoba de bruja, have the black pod disease, and the virus del hinchamiento del brote, which is the main cause in terms of drought and floodings, to also production in Ghana and other areas of the coast. We also have different viruses, like the so coming back to North America and including the Caribbean, Monilia has been reported in what is which is to Puerto Rico is some 500 Right now, according to ECO, the loss due to diseases can go up to 40%, and 30% are due to black pod, and 5% of the losses due to Monilia. I also want to mention that the black pod is present almost in every territory where cacao is being grown. So it's very important that we understand this disease, because this is what is responsible for so many of the losses. And in terms of Monilia is a lower percentage, and this presents less than 15% of the losses. This is the trajectory of Monilia from the beginnings. The first reports were in Colombia in 1817, 99 years afterwards in Ecuador, and in 1941 in Venezuela. In Panama, it reached in 1956, Costa Rica 1978, and 2 years afterwards, it was in the territory of Nicaragua. 17 years afterwards, in 1997, it was reported in Honduras for the first time, especially in this area we're marking here. In 1998, we had the hurricane, and that affected a lot the Honduran area. So it is attributed for the dissemination of this disease in the main areas where cacao is grown, that are in the Atlantic littoral or coast. In 2002, it reached Guatemala, and then 2 years afterwards in Belize, Salvador 2009, and Mexico 2005. And recently in 2016, we found the first reports of this disease in Jamaica. So Monilia is already in insular America and in the islands of the Caribbean. Part of the information for Monilia in 4 years, from 1916 to 1919, the loss for Monilia was 95% of the production. In Costa Rica, in 4 years, they lost 70% of the production because of Monilia. And it went from 9,500 tons to 2,800 tons. In Honduras, in 4 years, we lost 80% of production because of Monilia. And in Mexico, in just 2 years, 2006 to 2008, their production went from 40,000 tons to only 12,000 tons. So if we see it from the point of view or the perspective of losses, we would say that Monilia is affecting from 70 to 95% of production if we don't handle that properly. And what are the elements that are dealing or that are adding to this situation? This is a triangle for Monilia. That is our example today. So we have a cacao and then we have a favorable environment, and also that has to do with environment. Both have to do with the environment, climate, and management, that we are handling the cacao. And then we have the pathogen that is related to the disease. And right now in Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic and other areas, you still don't have and haven't dealt with this that could cause Monilia disease. So it's very important that we recognize early this disease. And I can say that Monilia is going after the cacao pod. You will see that the first problems you're going to see are deformation in these pods that are less than 2 months old. And from 3 months on, we don't see that much deformation, but we see the first oily areas and patches. And with time, this becomes a stain that is necrotic. And then you will see the mycelia, which is the sporulation. as well as then the mummification. In 1 square centimeter, you can find between 7 or 43 million spores. The difference in the development of the disease.
And also the black spot, I think that you already know it. It's a little bit more aggressive in terms of it complies with the cycle in terms of 8 to 12 days. We could observe the development of the necrotic spot and at the same time the mycelium of the Phytophthora. And particularly this disease is affecting all the tissues of the plant, not only the fruit, but also the shaft, provoking these issues with the trunk and the shaft, and also in the, we could see the swelling of the new leaves, causing the disease that we know as tobacco leaf. And talking about the climate conditions, this chart that we can see here and was made with a data set from 2005 to 2020, and we can see here that as we have more precipitation, and those are the months where we can see the highest percentage of Monilia and black pot. And normally those are the months from November to January. And on the other hand, with the increase in temperature, that it favors healthy fruits. So we have a higher percentage of healthy pots in the summer months between April, May, and up to September. So it is evident, talking about the climate conditions, that these are determinant for the development of this disease and the damages that it may cause. As a control method, we talk about that there is not a method per se, so we need to have an integrated management, not only the use of fungicide or the cultural practices, but at the end of the day, the management and the efficiency of keeping this Monilia below the acceptable financial levels. It's the total management, starting with the shade, in our cocoa trees. And it's true that cocoa likes the shade, but not so much. And now I am talking about cocoa more than being a friend to shade. It is tolerant to shade more than a friend. So the integrated management of these conditions to keep the shade levels at an appropriate level for the cocoa crops. And here we can see the association or the relationship that we can find between the basal area of the trees, and we can measure the diameter of the canopy and the tree cover, and they contribute shade to the cocoa trees, and we can see a proportional relationship. So we can see that the trees that are growing more in terms of diameter, those trees have more coverage. And if we take one of these two variables, for example, the coverage in the plot of land versus the yield, and I want to focus on this quadrant, seeing the X axis and lower yield to the left, higher yield to the right, and the coverage in the plotland, lower coverage on the bottom and higher coverage on the top. And we can see the highest yield when we have a low coverage. And also with this relationship of the coverage to the diseases in cocoa, we can see that we have more incidence of disease as the coverage increases. So an excess of shade is going to cause a low production of fruit and at the same time a higher incidence of disease. And here we can see the key data. Each of these represents the yield of a parcel through the year. And we're talking about the yield versus the shade produced by the timber trees. And we can concentrate on the top of the chart and we can see that up to 20% of coverage, up to 20%, the yield is not going to be affected. So we could have the same yield with 5% of shade, the same as with 20% of shade. So obviously I am going to take the 20% of shade because intrinsically I'm going to have more trees, more timber, and my crop is going to be more resistant and more resilient. And we are talking about a maximum of 30 to 35% of shade. We still could have important yields and more dry cocoa tons. And now with 45%, the potential yield is going to decrease. And here we are talking about the same coverage versus the diseases. And we can see that up to 20% of shade, the coverage, the incidence could be below 7%. But if we go over 45% of shade, then the incidence could be up to 20 or 25%. So we need to pay attention to the factor of the shade in our cocoa trees. And recently, researchers from CATIA, led by Dr. Summer Rivan and Dr. Orlando Silva, have developed a tool that is very useful to see this dynamic of the shade, this modeling of the shade on the farms through time. And what data are needed to use this application? Well, we need to go to the plots of land. We need to measure all the shade trees. We need to measure the height, the width, the diameter, the width of the canopy, the percentage of light that is allowed. To then we could include the data in the application and then we would have a 3D model like this and a 2D model where we could see where we have most of the shade and most of the light. So each quadrant is equivalent to 1 square meter. And at the end of the day, the application gives us a summary where we can find the a cover percentage. In this case, we had an excess of shade, and it's the same image that we have seen before with a 48% of shade. And we have a basal area of almost 13 square meters by hectares. And this is excessive. So we need to keep the basal area maximum to a 10 square meter. And what is important about this application? Well, it allows me to do to have a simulation from my desk and we can see the shade trees and we can check them systematically with, and for example, we can see here on the bottom of the screen, we can see this image and again, we would run the data with the trees that we have here. And here I can see that my new coverage now is 23%. Which is a coverage that is not going to affect so much the yield of the crop and a basal area of 5 square meters per hectare. And then we can see it like this on the picture. And after working with the shade, then we could see the management practices for cocoa. And we can see the trimming, And we saw in Peru that the trimming should be started. It is recommended to initially trim the height to keep it between 3 to 4 meters height. And after that, we could define the productive area of the tree to then we could decrease intercrossing in the branches to favor the aeration of our plot and to diminish these incidence of diseases. And on top of that practices, we have the opportune harvest between 8 to 15 days, approximately 2 weeks, because at the same time, we recommend to collect healthy product and also to eliminate the fruits that are damaged by the disease. And here we can see the elimination of these damaged fruits. And here we are eliminating late this fruit, but we should eliminate them at the beginning when they are showing the first signs of the disease, because if we cut them and let them drop to the floor, they could infect all the trees. So when we're going to eliminate the fruits, we should avoid getting to this point. And also we need to control the weeds to avoid diseases and pests, and also we need to clean and maintain the drainage. As a complementary practice, we say that if it is needed and if opportune, we should apply mineral applications to these crops. So here in this first test that we did an assessment of 5 treatments where we were evaluating trichoderma products based on copper and other important mineral elements for the nutrition of the cocoa and micronutrients. A third treatment based on sulfur and potassium. A fourth treatment based on vegetable extracts like garlic, onion, ginger, and citrus, and also treatment with a witness which is eliminating the disease products. And what we found in this analysis, well, according to the variables, we saw a significant statistical difference for the control of Monilia. And we were favoring the copper treatment. And I want to tell you that this plot of land that we took for this test, it had 100% of incidence of Monilia and black pot. So these 7.7 fruits are the fruits reported with this incidence. And also the less efficient treatment was the biologic treatment based on, also the one based on sulfur with 12, almost 13 fruits with incidence of this disease. And also the copper was the treatment, the best treatment to control Monilia. We also found that copper was favoring the increase of the total fruit together with sulfur and potassium. So sulfur, more than being a fungicide, it helps to increase the number of product. So here, this last column is for dry cocoa. With copper, the production was 774 dried kilograms per hectare. And the control treatment was the commercial treatment was 589. So there was an increase of more than 220 dried kilograms per hectares, and coming from the worst scenario from this plot of land where we were not able to collect any healthy product. And here we could see the same data, but now with a bar chart, and we can see the copper in terms of incidence of healthy fruits was 49.1%, the same as the cultural control in terms of incidence. And there was a difference with copper. We can see the application of other elements that the plants need. So it increased to 11 fruits. We already saw it in the previous table, 11.5, where the cultural treatment was 8.8%. So if we see it from the point of view of incidence, we could say that there is no difference between these two treatments because both of them reported 49% of healthy fruits, but 49% of healthy fruits in copper is superior because it also increased the production of healthy fruits. So this is another result of another test that we did with a master's degree thesis. The student studied the effect of copper versus others like polysulfur calcium and the calcium sulfosilicon and the absolute control with no application of any product. We saw the incidence compared to when we use copper-based product with 30% of incidence versus 90% of incidence when nothing was done, especially for Monilia. And we also evaluate the severity of the damage. In this case, it was black pot. And we took as a variable what is the diameter of the spot or lesion. And the fruit with the copper treatment had the smaller size of the spot, 3.2 centimeters versus the control, which was 6.5. And with calcium and sulfur, it was 9.3 centimeters. And the most economical practice was the use of a diverse treatments with the tolerance to this disease. Always the genetic control has a lot to do with the crop and the agricultural production. That is going to be the most profitable practice. And we start with the selection of the progenies, selecting and identifying those elite trees with the characteristics that we are looking for in terms of production, disease tolerance, and natural conditions. And also in terms of quality. In selecting their progenies, it's a phase that took us 10 years. The best progenies are cloned and they are assessed for another 10 years with a higher scientific standards using experimental design. And a plot of land that we did genetic improvement, they had 750 individuals, and out of those 750, only the elite trees that were successful were 18 trees. So the challenge was identifying those 18 trees, and now they were cloned and they are the selection of the fee. And we have a set of 18 materials and 7 of them are showing yields higher than 1,500 kilograms per hectare per year. This is an excellent yield compared to the national median. And most countries, it doesn't go over 500 kilograms, particularly in Honduras, it doesn't go over 400 kilograms. So at the same time, we also have a chart of the losses because of these two diseases, Monilia and black pot, and we can see the loss. In 2020, Dr. Ramon Jaimes, who is going to be one of the speakers talking about the physiology of cocoa with other collaborators, they published an article where they had a disease spot index, DPI. And this is a mathematical expression based on the logic of making a selection of these clones or trees that have a higher yield of healthy fruits and a lower production of disease spot. So we need to have the number of healthy fruits and number of disease fruit, and it could be done individually by disease. So we could have a DPI for Monilia versus the production of healthy fruit versus disease products with only with Monilia. Or we could do it, for example, with black pod. And it could be done together with a general DPI where we could have a material with a great production of healthy products and low incidence of black pod. And here in this chart, we can see the evolution of that DPI. At the highest DPI, we see that among those 18 materials, at least 6 of them have a high resistance and a good production from the beginning. Since the clonal phase in 2017. And we can also see that, for example, the FIA 533 material is a material that has always been among the most productive materials with a high tolerance. All of them in green have higher DPI, higher production with lower incidence of disease product. And here we have genetic improvement, and we need to evaluate the generic resistance of material through artificial inoculation and already submitting healthy products to highest pressure of inoculation, in this case, reproduced by laboratories and coming from field disease products. And in the last 10 years, in FIA, we have been working on seeing these reactions, these diseases. And in this case, 106 clones were evaluated to see the reaction to the Monilia disease. And from 106 clones, we used 4807 fruits. And for the reaction to black pod, we used 82 clones with 3,386 fruits evaluated, and that's almost 8,200 fruits that we have sprayed to learn about that reaction to this resistance. And with data from Monilia, out of those 106 clones, 61 clones were highly resistant for Monilia, and for black pod, only 9 clones were resistant. And this makes sense since the genetic improvement programs in CATIE and FIA, they are focusing more on genetic improvement, looking for resistance to Monilia. And this is part of the methodology, the increase and isolation of the pathogen in the laboratory. These are fruits affected in the field. They are submitted to the plant of this tissue to obtain the product with a petri dish with growing of this Monilia. And on the bottom, it is Phytophthora palmivora. We see the same, the petri dish, we are already with growth. The field fruits, in the case of to see the reaction of Monilia, they are sprayed between 3 to 5 millimeters of a solution with more than 1 million spores per milliliter water. So this is a high concentration. And for the black pod, we place a piece of paper impregnated with the aqueous solution to then evaluate the reaction of the disease through measuring the diameter of the spot. And here we can see the inoculated fruits in the field. And we place this cylindrical mesh to avoid damage from the squirrels, and also at the same time to control the microclimate through a paper towel impregnated with water, so the fungus has the conditions to incubate in the fruit. And when we evaluate the genetic resistance to Monilia, we did it 8 weeks after application. And when we're talking about the resistance to Phytophthora, we do it 8 days after the application. And this is the formula that we use in this case to measure the incidence. It is a very simple formula, and it is the total pots that were affected by the disease to any of the two diseases divided by the total sprayed product to have a percentage of what was the incidence. And for these first two images on the left hand, we see that we had 0% of incidence. In this case, Monilia, and the ICS 95 is a material that is very resistant to moniliasis. And pound 12 is a material that is moderately susceptible, and the ICS 39 is a material that is very susceptible with 100% of the fruits with moniliasis. So this here is when we check the products and we can see that the raw material is completely destroyed. And these are scales done by phytopathologists to evaluate the degree of severity in this case of Monilia, and it goes from 0 to 5 according to what we see on the symptomatology. And grade 1, we only see some oily spots. Grade 2, when we see some premature maturation and yellowing, also the cause of Monilia. And grade 3, where we can see the necrotic spot. Grade 4, when the necrotic spot, it presents less than 25% of mycelium. And grade 5, when the necrotic spot, the mycelium goes over 50% of. And we also have an internal evaluation, and we have a scale according to the percentage of internal tissue damage by this disease. And we have a grade 1 when the internal damage goes from 1 to 20%, and grade 5 when the internal tissue has more than 80% with necrosis. At the end, this is the qualification that we have. We have resistance with the severity from 0 to 1.25, and susceptible when it is from 3.76 to 5. And the black pot was evaluated differently using a measuring tape to measure the diameter of the spot. And according to this diameter is the grade of resistance. And we have resistant when the diameter is from 0 to 2 centimeters. And susceptible when the diameter was greater than 6 centimeters. And here we can see, yes, we only have just a few minutes left. Thank you very much. And here we can see images of some material like the F677, the inoculated control, susceptible to the disease. And this is a material that is very resistant. Also the Fiat 32. We see a high resistance to black pod and Fiat 360. We see the control with the application, and that is totally covered with spots. And the evaluated material is very clean. No spots. And here we see very susceptible material to the disease, like Fiat 330 and ESN 59. These are materials that are very susceptible. And it is a challenge finding a material that could be resistant to both diseases. We can see that 95 was among the most resistant to Monilia, but very susceptible to black spot. And here we see a comparison between FIA 330 that is very susceptible and FIA 708, which is very resistant. And this is the case for Monilia. We see that the materials like Cacao 39, FIA 330, very resistant to Monilia, FIA 32, and ISC 95. FIA 92 was very resistant to black pod and also very resistant to Monilia. Additionally, this material with an auto-compatible clone, it doesn't need pollen from another one to complete the fruit, and it also shows a lot of white almond, which is represents quality. So we are hopeful that we could spread this productivity in the quality in the cacao trees. In this case, CSN 51 was susceptible to both disease, and ICS 39 was susceptible to both disease. And to wrap up, I just wanted to say that Monilia always represents a threat, a significant threat to the production in all the world, and also in the case of Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. They are very close to the disease that is already in Jamaica. So it is fundamental that they make important efforts in controlling and keeping surveillance so this disease doesn't arrive. And at the same time, always with the preventive purposes, it is important to include these resistant clones to the genetic improvement programs.
The integrated management offers the
So
best
the
alternative
genetic
to be able
improvement
to research all of
is
this
the best
related to
alternative.
disease, and
Unfortunately,
that
there are
there are
experiences
experiences that are supported by science that show that it is best to deal with integrated management of disease. We have good news in that sense. We have proof that this is a method that works. Thank you so much. It's been great. Thank you so much, Oscar. Thank you for this excellent presentation. We have learned a lot, and you give us hope that even if the disease reaches our shores, it is not going to be the end of the world. We need to prepare. We need to have the strategies. And as you mentioned, we need to be prepared with this type of activities that allow us to prepare for the arrival of this disease. We are at the end time. It's 10 a.m. in Costa Rica, 12 p.m. in Puerto Rico. If you have to leave, thank you so much for being with us. The seminar is being recorded and we are going to be able to share it into different platforms. But for those who want to remain, we will be here and Oscar will be here to answer any questions. Some of them have been written in the chat. Luis has been offering some of the answers, but if there's anything additional or somebody wants to make a comment, if you raise your hand, I can open your microphone so that you can share whatever comment or question you have. There is a question that hasn't been answered. What is the viability time for the spores of the black pod? Well, it is an indefinite time. The black pod is always going to be there on the soil. So what we recommend according to the research is that when we are going to cut down a fruit that is affected, we should try, if we're going to leave it in the farm, we need to throw it and cover it with the leaf because there are good microorganisms that will deactivate this. And that applies with Monilia and also to black pod. Viviana to be able to complement. I was doing consultations here to Mariela. She is a pathologist, and she says that the spores, the viability can be for 7 months. In those 7 months, if the conditions are there for the fungal infestation, we can have it. And it can be less than 2 or 3 months, depending on the climate situations. Both of the diseases are going to be in danger of developing according to the amount of spores and the presence of spores. And one other thing that I wanted to mention is that I know that some units can cause some confusion. So if you have any questions on the presentations or the measurement units, I can help you with the conversion so that you can understand the relation in relation to the production that is done here in Puerto Rico, because we manage pounds and we use cuerdas. We don't use hectares. So I can give you a cheat sheet so that you can have the conversion information so that you can conceptualize the numbers and to apply it to the conditions in your farms. I don't know. I believe that everything was answered in the chat, and what we can do is read them so that the people that are on their phone and cannot see the chat, I can read them. We have a question that says, how true is it that more coverage, better quality in flavor? It's an inverse situation with the performance of the crop. So there are studies that say that this is true. They can perceive different flavors according to the coverage. The soil can offer flavors and smells to the grain, but that has not been confirmed. Under cover, it's 25% production less than under sun. And another thing that I have been reading literature on is that when we have a more exposition to the sun, the plants tend to have more antioxidant. That is a sunblock for the plants. And I have seen that the more exposure, more concentration of the antioxidants, and that goes to the seed. So when we have that, we have more astringency. So we can see that more concentration of astringents because of the sun exposure, but that does not mean that this is not a good cacao or with a bad profile. We have to work with the fermentation, or it's a different profile, and it is going to have more notable characteristics. Oscar? There is another question. Will it be needed to remove the fruits that are do we need to remove the plants or the seeds that are deceased, or can we leave it there and cover them? No, we have to remove them. We live with a disease where we used to cover it, but in the first cases that you see in the farm, the best thing is to remove all of that area that has been infected and let others know that this is happening. And as we say here, if you have a doubt, deal with it immediately and let us know. There's a question. Let's see if we can have a memo on the or memories and documents on the seminar every time that we finish them. So yes, Luis is going to be doing that because he's a fan of of this type of documents. The presentation is going to be shared. We are going to be sharing it with the people that registered. We're going to offer copies in PDF. And there's another question to see if there are parallel research tests on fungicide and synthetic like pickle lights. Thank you. I cannot see the questions in the chat, but the biologic treatment and some of these were, we didn't see it be more efficient. The other question is, do you recommend mixing clones, resistant and non-resistant, in terms of Costa Rica? What are the varieties that are more often used? I can read what Luis mentioned. The genetic selection for cacao is the first barrier to handle diseases. So we should mix at least 4 or 5 clones in one planting if they are tolerant to diseases. This topic of diseases, we have to modify the environment. That is very important. We cannot allow that the environment go untreated and unhandled. We have clones that are very susceptible, but we offer the right conditions and we are handle. And of course, the fruit that is diseased, we take out, we remove. We have to be very careful because conditions can worsen if we are not taking care of the issue. And I wanted to add something to that question. And it's a comment that in each one of the countries where we have an investigation and research center for cacao has information on different varieties that are susceptible or tolerant or resistant to both conditions. So I am sorry, I lost audio. I lost audio. I am so that shows resistance or tolerance to the diseases. And our problem is that in the future, there are some diseases that are going to become a problem. We need to find the information and the data that support the tolerance or resistance in terms of genes to diseases. And we need to understand the material, we need to have knowledge on it, and we have to see in terms of resistance and quality and tolerance we have to, or we want to have in our countries. And on that side, in the presentation, Vivian, excuse me, we have the material with the resistance to the different, you're going to see green, red, and yellow, and that shows you the levels of tolerance, and that is part of the presentation, degrees of tolerance. So what I want to add on the institutions that are handling research, there's a question if we have information of damage on black cob in Puerto Rico. And we know that there have been some studies, I don't know if they have been published or not, but we had a presentation to about some findings that were very interesting. If it was black pot disease or not, what was the disease that was causing this visual indications, and I have to ask the researcher to see if those if that information is available and make it available to all of you. I believe that we have covered all questions that we had. We are past our time for everyone here. So Luis, I don't know if you would like to share some last remarks. On my part, thank you so much. And we are open to another series of seminars on any of the topics on cacao so that we can share our experience. Thank you so much to all. Thank you, Oscar, for your time and for the experience you were shared with us. And I want to also thank everyone that was part of this seminar. We were able to answer all of the questions. This is just the first experience of 6 or 8 presentations that we have in this webinar series for the summer. Next week, we're going to be talking on quality, different faces about this topic with the participation of farms, big private farms in Costa Rica. Katia is also going to be participating. Viviana, because she's so knowledgeable on the topic. And we extend the invitation to register, to be aware of the ad that we're going to have with our presenters. And I believe that in the next series session, we're going to have as much knowledge at this time. So thank you, Oscar, and thank you to all of the people that supported us in creating this series for the summer. Thank you, everyone. It seems that your comments are very valuable. Thank you for your comments. If you want to send us an email with your questions or comments, we will receive them with pleasure, and we can share the link for the next seminars. For all of those who might be interested, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here with us. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you. Let's celebrate those 40 years, Oscar. Thank you.